Welcome to the American MedSpa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with Ashley James, CEO of DermAesthetic Consulting.
Welcome, everybody. This is Medical Spa Insider. And on the AmSpa video hotline, we have the lovely and talented Ashley James, CEO of DermAesthetic Consulting, and the National MedSpa Training Institute, and the co-founder of MedSpa Mobile Solutions. This is your second, I think, at least time on the podcast. We always love having you on. You've come a long way in your career. It's been great to kind of watch you build. You've had so many cool ideas. Last time you were on, we talked a lot about the mobile med spa side of your space, which is still really cool. For those of you who want to learn a little bit about mobile med spas and some of the really amazing things you can do, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that podcast. I want to talk a little bit more this time about startups, because that's where a lot of your focus now in consulting, at least, goes to helping folks get their med spas off the ground, thinking about finances, maybe discovering some of those hidden finances. Before we get into that, though, Ashley, how have you been? What's new? What's the latest?
I've been great, besides the fact that I'm getting over the most horrendous flu ever, and I sound not like myself. Things have been good. 2024 was a great year for our company. We helped a lot of new practices launch. We helped grow a lot of practices. I'm just a nerd when it comes to business, Alex. You know me, so I just have so much fun. I did promise myself this year I was going to try to work on a little family work-life balance.
Yeah, how's that going?
And not well.
Yeah. Now, are you a New Year's resolution kind of girl, or is that just kind of something you do naturally? Because some people, for me, it works. Like New Year, I like to buckle down and start again.
Honestly, no. I'm more of I do that around my birthday, which is in May, and I kind of look back at what I've accomplished and what I want to achieve in the next year. But I will say that this year I did kind of give myself a goal. I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I said, I'm going to give myself more patience. So I'm being more patient with the process. I'm a very I need it now. Let's get it done now. And not everything has to be done right this second. So I'm just giving myself a little bit more grace. Yeah,
that's important. And for folks who have not heard you yet, and this is the first time they're discovering Ashley James and DermAesthetic Consulting, just give a quick little thumbnail sketch of what you do and what DermAesthetic Consulting does and what the Training Institute is all about as well.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the field almost, 25 years now. I started by opening my first med spa when I was barely 23 years old. And since then, I've owned and operated several of my own aesthetic practices and had this habit of building them from scratch to multi-million-dollar entities and then selling them and then retire, and then did it again and then sold it, and the same thing. And I realized when I sold my dermatology practice several years ago that I think it was God's way of preparing me for what I'm doing right now, which is, building med spas, helping clients expand them into thriving entities. I've always been a nerd when it came to business, and that really was what I'm good at, is starting, growing, and then moving on. And so as a consultant, I get to do that with my clients. I get to help brainstorm and evolve these amazing business plans, making each one unique and profitable, kind of hold their hand through the journey and just watch them, be successful. And when I decided to get into consulting after I attempted to retire, I wanted to be a different type of business consultant. I didn't just want to be the consultant that says, you know what, here's a task plan, here's what you need to do, and let's pay me the big bucks, and good luck. I realized that when you've never started a business before, it's super intimidating and it's very, very scary. And you make a lot of mistakes that can sometimes be very expensive. And so there really is, what was missing was that hand-holding piece, really being able to talk with the client about, here's what I would suggest, and here's what we've done, or here's what people in your area are doing, here's how we can be different, and kind of walking them through it, but doing it with them, and not just saying, here you go, here's a task plan, and best of luck, and call me if you have questions. I also had done some research, and some of the biggest complaints that we found were that the that these consultants were not necessarily available to the clients all the time. They'd have to schedule meetings and would only get like 1 or 2 hours a month. And I don't know how you open a business like that. So we really try to be very, very accessible to our clients. And it ends up being, a very intimate relationship that we have with all of our clients and really fun process. But for me, I wanted to be all in for our clients. And what I found is that not only is it really appreciated, but it teaches the client everything that I know when they're doing it, so that when they want to do another location or they want to do it again, they don't feel like newbies.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And that is a big worry from clients, is when you're hiring a consultant, you want the help, right? And you want the help from the person that you're hiring. Part of the irony, I suppose, of being a consultant is that, you as a consultant only have so many hours in a day, and people want, Ashley James, they want you to be the one that they're talking to. It's a little more difficult to scale because you can't just duplicate yourself, but I do think there are ways where you can do that. And so how do you manage that? I mean, you've got, there's only so much of you that can go around. How do you translate that knowledge so that people can learn and get access to you without totally taking over your entire life?
Well, it's been a challenge. If there's any consultants out there that are looking for a job, I am hired. I have an amazing team, and I'm always, very blessed to have great support system within DAC. But it's really just taking my brain. Like, I've spent a lot of time systematizing, training, sales training, consultations, how you do your finances, how you budget. We've developed the KPI tracker that we utilize in most of our projects. So really just providing tools that we have created over time that our clients are able to use in the practice. But really, it's just, I have a great team, but it's having those tools in place that we use to clients.
That's how you do it. That's how you scale. But it's challenging. You mentioned a few things about helping folks, startups, particularly when they're opening a business. It's interesting because I just had a conversation with a group of investors the other day who were looking to get into med spas. And they were just looking for kind of background insight. And I said, like a lot of the entrepreneurs, number one, it's mostly single owner, single location still right now. That's kind of the bulk of the industry. But most of them aren't born entrepreneurs. They see this opportunity, they want to get into it, and they go for it. But you're right, they're not experts at business. They don't know all of the answers. They haven't necessarily even done it before. A lot of them are doing it for the first time, and it's a challenge because a lot of them don't know what they don't know. There's a huge learning curve when it comes to folks who are coming into this business. I'm curious, your typical client, what's their kind of avatar? What do they look like? And then what are some of the things that they tend to struggle with when it comes to starting at, what is it? Finances? Is it getting the finances? Is it knowing what the finances are going to be? Is it, the marketing plan? What's kind of the thing that resonates the most?
Well, that's a loaded question, Alex, because there's two types. Like you said, there's a lot of these private equity firms who we've been consultants for when they're trying to buy practices, which is kind of what a lot of physicians' end game is starting it and then selling it for their retirement. But we have the majority of our clients are, the startup, either the physician who is looking for more cash-based business, who has no knowledge of business whatsoever. They just know medicine. And then we have the non-physicians who were like myself back when I was 23, who don't know anything about the business. They maybe have some experience with the aesthetics, but some of them don't. And I would say that's the biggest issue. With business, you can teach and you can guide and you can put the tools in place, but a lot of business professionals are coming into the space saying, I see that the aesthetic industry is a cash cow and I want to get into it. But the aesthetic industry is unique. So you really have to understand your products. You have to understand your services. You have to understand the legal structure behind it. A lot of business people don't understand the corporate practice of medicine. They don't realize that they technically have to partner with a doctor for it to be structured and set up the right way. And that being said, you're going to have to be prepared to invest in the people that are the professionals that can run the day to day. So if you're
Sure.
not in the aesthetic industry and you're just, wanting to own the practice, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny to find those rock stars that can, provide their treatments to the patients.
Yeah, for sure. It's, I think you're right. And you've been in a couple different, you've been in aesthetics, obviously mostly, but and I don't want to catch you off guard with this question, but this is a very unique industry. It's a very unique business. I talk to folks who are in healthcare, who are investing in healthcare, and they kind of come in feeling like they got the answers. And I'm always like, this is a different industry. It's a different type of entrepreneur. It's a different type of patient. It's very unlike anything else that I've seen. I'm curious, what do you kind of find is unique and extra challenging about opening a med spa versus maybe some other type of practice?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of competition. So what I always tell my clients is your clients are going to purchase with you. So people purchase with people in this industry. It's not like traditional medicine where, you have to get your appendix out, or you have a flu and you need a doctor and you're going just to the nearest doctor, whoever you've been going to. In this industry, they're going to come to you and stay with you based on if they like you and if you're meeting their expectations. And those expectations are usually just, can you provide the results that I'm looking for? And do I trust you? And then are you able to meet my financial expectations? And that could be a whole other conversation. But it's really, it comes down to the customer service, how you're making them feel from the phone call to every time they come in, not just when you're trying to earn their business, and just the whole patient journey. So there's a lot of I want to say frou-frou stuff. There's a lot of hand holding and caressing your patients, and just making sure that every experience is a great experience in every facet of the business. And I think that's harder for business people because they're just thinking about the numbers rather than the entire patient journey. And it's not like your traditional, medical visit, like, oh, hi,
Right.
license and insurance card. It's, hey, Susie, how are you? How's your kid feeling? I mean, it's so much more than just coming in for the service.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about costs, startup costs, and some of those hidden costs. And there's a lot of folks who I think are very much in the dark about what it takes to start a med spa. And just for clarity, I've helped as a lawyer back in the day, and I've seen a lot of folks who will start their practice just in a single room with only doing injectables, and so I'm not really talking about that because I think a lot of folks can do that, but the dream of a lot of people is to have a fully functioning med spa with the different energy devices, with the look, the feel, and that is, I feel like people sometimes think it's cheaper and easier than it is, and I wonder how you would address that. And then how do we go about determining what the budget should be? And if someone's out there listening right now saying, I want to start a med spa, maybe not the Taj Mahal, something, smaller, but still effective. How much am I going to need? How do I get that money? Let's go there if you don't mind.
Well, I would say, in all honesty, almost every single customer that schedules a strategy call with me that has an idea of what the budget is going to be is always off. I've had clients who say, I've got, $200,000 to my name and I'm going to open up a business. I've had clients say I have $75,000 and that's nowhere close. Google will tell you need about 1.5 or $1.7 million. I don't think you need that much, depending on the size of your practice. But I would say for a medium size, good, healthy practice, you're looking at anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, 3 to 4 exam rooms. You're going to be spending closer to $700,000 to $800,000 all in. Maybe a little bit more depending on devices or specific type of technology that you're wanting to bring in. So it's a lot more than I think. I'm going to rent the space. I'm going to buy some furniture. I'm going to buy some products and build a website. I'm going to go. There's so many hidden costs that they just don't anticipate. I would say the med spas that are struggling in their first couple of years are because they didn't know what their budget and their bottom line was before ever getting into it. So
Yeah.
I always say, you have to do a financial pro forma. You have to really kind of lay it all out on the table and ask all the questions, what's my rent going to cost? How much space am I going to have? Am I going to build that space out from a a vanilla shell. What's that cost going to be per square foot? I mean, if you take a vanilla shell, space, for example, right now we saw a huge jump in building costs over the last 2 years, going from an average of like $125 to $200 a square foot to $250 to $350 a square foot. So, if you're looking at building out or renovating a rented space, that's a considerable cost alone by itself. Your burden rate with your employees is also something that clients don't think of. If your the payroll's $15,000 a month, you got to add 20% on that for taxes and insurance and benefits and things like that. So a lot of hidden costs that get people into trouble underwater very quickly.
Is there one thing more than others that people are a little surprised at with the cost? Like, is it the build out, or is it, for me at the beginning, that when I started doing this, God, like eons ago, it was the cost of the machines, right? The energy devices. People were just like, oh my God, I got to spend. It's like, well, but if you stack in, the time and how much you can charge, you can make that money back. Some people, it's marketing costs. They don't realize how much or how long or how frequently they're going to need to be doing marketing to get the types of patients in. There's I think a misconception that, if you build it, people will just kind of come in, and that's not always the case. What are some of the things that people tend to be surprised about when you talk to them?
I think they're surprised that they need an actual business plan and a pro forma. I think that they're a little shocked with what that cost entails and how long that takes. A lot of people will actually contact us after they've already rented space and don't have a business plan or form. Like, oh my gosh, no, we don't have any of our numbers. We need to know what those numbers are before you commit to a 10-year lease. I would say the marketing is probably a big aspect. They don't realize how long it is to kind of get that marketing engine going. Jamie on my team is just a genius when it comes to marketing. She's got like 5 master's degrees in like the psychology of marketing. But, when you're getting ready to launch, like if you're going to launch in January, for example, you actually have to start your Google and all of that a good 3 to 4 months in advance, because it takes Google a really long time to recognize you and to kind of like, rank you essentially. And you have to get special certifications. If you're going to do Botox and injectables, you have to get specific certifications that Google require.
Right.
So they don't like disapprove your ads. So that's a big expense before you even open. And I think that's probably the biggest.
Is there a, and obviously this depends on what you're building, where you are, who you're servicing. But if someone's thinking about opening a med spa, how long should they anticipate needing before they can start actually bringing in enough money to cover their costs and being even just a minimal profitability?
From seed to launch, I like to have anywhere from 7 to 10 months. That's pretty reasonable if we're doing any build outs and recruiting for staff and training, getting everything going. But I would say with my business plans and performas, I would say 9 out of 10 of my clients are breaking even and making a little bit of profit every month by month 4. Which is very impressive, but that's also because I don't advise my clients to buy, $2 million worth of equipment. So my strategy is to kind of build gracefully, come out with a bang, but then add things on as certain revenue streams are really profitable. You have always heard the saying, you can be, a jack of all trades, master of none. In this industry, it's kind of how it is. It kind of goes back to your initial question on what are some of the things that you should be prepared for or surprised for. You should never launch with, 25 different services. Especially if you're not in the industry, you really need to kind of master a handful of them and promote a handful of them and then add them on as you build that clientele base.
I'm Kathy Christensen, President and CSO of AmSpa. Don't miss Medical Spa Show 2025, April 10th through the 13th at the beautiful Wynn in Vegas. Use code Medical Spa Insider MSS25, all caps, as a promo code when you register at www.medicalspashow.com. See you there.
Promo code expires on April 10, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Promo code only applies to the primary registrant. Promo code cannot be applied towards additional attendee registration and cannot be combined with any additional offers. Discount only applicable to new MSS 25 registrants. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's one that I think people get, when we've done our business, MedSpa business boot camps for years, it's one of the things that people get stuck on is they want to have everything all at once, and they tend to start buying stuff because it's the new shiny thing. They can see the return on it. They know that people want it, or they've seen ads on it, but it's difficult because these are expensive pieces of machinery. How do you advise people on determining what that initial treatment, two treatments are going to be? And I'm not talking about, obviously injectables are kind of one of them, but people want to do more than that. They want to have a microneedling with RF. They want to have skin tightening, all this stuff. How do you go about focusing and editing that down so that you're not broke right out of the bat?
Well, it comes down to what the owner's vision is. And, it's interesting that, really getting them to explain or kind of determine what their vision is a process in itself, because it's more than just, I want to open up a
How do you do that?
It's a lot of meetings and a lot of strategy sessions and a lot of like digging deep into, how do you want your client to feel and what do you want to be recognized for? Like, for example, they want to open up with Botox and fillers and PDO threads and all these things, and then randomly body contouring. Okay, well, are you going to do medical weight loss? Are you going to do, any type of fitness, peptides? So it's kind of categorizing their wants and evolving their vision from that aspect. I don't really like, doing all the different facial things and then throwing body treatments in. I don't think that meshes well for startups. Now, adding body treatments in and multi-sculpting is a great thing to add on once you have an established clientele base. However, if you're going to be focused on medical weight loss and GLP-1s, that would make sense to bring that in the beginning. So it's really just kind of identifying what is your brand and what is your business and what do we want the foundation to be. Everything else can kind of be added onto the side. But I also look at, tell me what all your wants are. Give me the list of everything that you want to offer. And then I start picking the ones that have the lowest direct cost. And where we have like a higher profit margin, because those services that have the higher profit margin are going to be your bread and butter for the first couple months. We always have to have Botox and fillers, but Botox and fillers, this is another surprise. They don't realize that the cost is 50%. So if you're doing $10,000 in Botox and fillers in a day, you're only making $5,000. And then you have to pay your staff, your supplies, all the things. And so you have to do a crazy amount of injectables to be able to make that profit that's going to keep you afloat. So, piggybacking those, that's the must-haves you need to have with the things that are maybe a lower direct cost that are higher profitable, like PDO threads or, services like that. So, and peptides and the wellness industries kind of colliding with aesthetics right now. So really kind of harnessing that and determining what do you know and what do you need to learn to be able to incorporate that into your practice.
Yeah. And, we see that like crazy. It's wellness, obviously GLP-1s, IV, all those things. Are you seeing that a lot too? And with your new clients, is it that confluence of wellness, whatever that means, it can mean a bunch of different things, but wellness and aesthetics seems to be where the future is. Are you seeing that too?
I've been seeing that for the last 3 years. I'll tell you, every single clinic we've launched has some type of the wellness services incorporated. And it makes a lot of sense, Alex, because, the whole reason that our clients are coming to the med spas is because they want to look younger and feel better. And so the wellness, the peptides, the IV therapy, all those integrative medicines are just kind of enhancing that inner feeling. So, you have so many peptides that can help with the collagen building and the natural glow. One of the things that I love to do is, if a client's coming in for PDO threadless, let's pop in an IV, like a glow IV that helps support collagen and cellular turnover and growth. So, there's nice complements that are great that you can add into the practice, and they're very, very low direct costs. I mean, a cost of an IV is just a couple dollars, and you can charge, $200 for an IV. So those are things that you can incorporate into the business that are big revenue makers, but not a big direct cost.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a huge shift in the field where, IVs, peptide therapy beyond just the GLP-1s, more of like muscle growth and stimulation and brain fog and memory. All of those things are becoming highly, highly in demand.
Yeah. Obviously GLP-1s have been kind of the thing that folks have been talking about really for the past 18 months or so. I mean, it's crazy, just the explosion of that. When you get folks who come in, is that one of the primary things they're asking about as well? And how do you feel about that whole area? Because it's transformed a lot of businesses. It's created a whole kind of market for new businesses, but there's also some, there's some things you got to be careful with. And I think there's people who maybe are doing it and maybe not doing it the right way. And it's gotten a little bit of bad publicity as well. But what are your thoughts on all that craze?
Well, I think that if you're going to be doing any type of IVs or peptides or GLP-1, you need to have a doctor or an NP on staff all the time. They need to be there. There's this trend of medical directors who are off-site and RNs kind of run the show. And I think that's a very dangerous situation to get yourself into. Because, if they're coming in for medical weight loss, that's a medical procedure. I mean, all of this is medical, that, but things can go wrong, and you need to have someone on staff that can kind of monitor and make sure that things are being done the right way. You need to be doing more comprehensive panels before you even get into any of this to make sure that what you're recommending for the client is in their best interest. So there's a lot of liability that comes along with it. Either with from an IV aspect, you want to make sure that they're good candidates, but that what you're giving them is safe and it's recommended. And I just feel like, as the wellness industry kind of merges with the aesthetic industry, I feel that the need to have more medical professionals on site is kind of where where it needs to be, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough because there's not, we still don't have enough medical professionals and providers out there to really meet the demand. Where do you think the industry, this is talk about a loaded question. Like, where do you think, like, what's the next, I don't want to say the next big thing, but like we talked about the integration of wellness and aesthetics. Obviously we've seen a ton of growth in the space, and we've seen some drawback, over the past year with some people. What's the future look like to you of aesthetics? Like, and the reason I ask is this group I was talking with the other day, they've heard some things where it's been like, there's been a bit of a dip for some in some regions and some med spas in 24. And they're wondering, is this kind of the new normal, or are we going to go back to really explosive growth? And I always say that I think the growth is absolutely needed, and we're going to have more of that. But where are we going with this? Because it's kind of an interesting time for aesthetics, and I think there's a lot to come. The other shoe is gonna drop with a lot of these, with the technology advancements and the all these new businesses, private equity, being owners of some of these chains. Let's look into the crystal ball and tell me what the future is.
I really see peptides and integrative medicine, the functional medicine, being huge for this industry. I think that as the consumer becomes more educated with what's available to them, as they become more educated on the peptides and the proteins and the amino acids and all the things, and word gets out how much of an improvement they can feel internally and look externally, I think that's going to create a huge surge. We're seeing a lot of med spas getting kind of back into more of the medical side of things, like with hormone therapy, for example. Doing a lot more from a laboratory aspect to look at what's really going on in the body from an aging perspective, and using data to really develop proper treatment plans. So we're seeing a shift in more of it, not just being, fine lines and wrinkles and healthy skin. We're seeing it more of like, let's dig deeper and kind of fix the problem from the inside out first. So I think that all started with COVID, Alex. Honestly, I feel like with everybody started getting sick, People started paying more attention to what they're putting in their bodies. And then when that happened, everybody started learning what the different things can do to improve your health, slow down the aging. And so I think incorporating those things, I think that's going to be the shift in the aesthetic industry over these next several years for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you can't, just because you increase certain aspects of your appearance and make them better, doesn't mean you're going to necessarily feel better automatically. There's so much more that goes into it. And so I think you're right. And what I've always liked about the industry, and you've said this, I think in the past, is that it's, why this is a good industry and a fun industry to be in and a fulfilling industry is that you do get to you get to change people's lives, right? Like literally make them feel different about themselves, about what they do, about not only about their appearance, but how they feel. And that's an incredibly powerful thing to be a part of. And so it makes sense. Like it shouldn't just be about the skin and the fine wrinkles. There's things like, mental health therapy, like how is that all gonna, building muscle. And I've seen a lot of folks who are now incorporating trainers into their practices with GLP-1s, because it's you don't want to take these meds and then have all your muscles kind of fade away. So it's cool. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. I actually have a client right now that we're launching next week, and they were initially a GLP-1 provider online. And they're taking their whole practice to brick and mortar and have a massive plan to open up multiple locations throughout the next couple of years. And that's exactly what we've done. We've incorporated red light therapy. We've incorporated fitness programs, trying to create community for their business so that people feel comfortable about losing weight, but also talking about it. They've got peptides and the aesthetics and all the things. And so it's offering full health and anti-aging from the inside out. And so I will honestly say that in the last 2 years, more clinics that we have helped launch or expand are doing so with all of these services rather than lasers. Lasers are still a big thing, but you're not seeing people really kind of focused on all the lasers. They're doing maybe like the Cyton, BBL, Halo, Moxie, and that's it. They're not necessarily doing everything else that comes along with it. Now, in this practice that I'm talking about, they will be bringing in body contouring and muscle sculpting here in a few months after they open, but that fits with their business model. But I would say that's kind of where it's going, which is why I said earlier that in the medical med spa industry, it's always been medical. I don't think it's really had the reputation of being medical. It's always still a surprise to nurses who want to open up their own business that they can diagnose a wrinkle and then just give them Botox. That's illegal. But it really is becoming more medical, needing to have those medical directors on site, those doctors on site, and employing those full-time nurse practitioners and doctors to really make things run the way that they should from a compliance aspect, but also from a patient safety aspect.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. It's, you've been obviously in the industry quite a long time. You've seen it grow, you've seen it change. Isn't it sometimes just mind-boggling to see where it's come in the last, not even 10 years, just a few years. It just it's changing all the time.
Oh, I mean, I remember my first clinic trying to explain to somebody what a laser was. It was, or like when the Fraxel device came out, they couldn't see it, it is crazy. And I will say that, I was an esthetician. I had started my career off in the nursing field. I'd gone to nursing school and then transitioned into aesthetics. And estheticians were kind of running the show back then. And that has been shifting right now because the industry is getting more medical, estheticians are kind of being kicked out because, they can't do the Botox and the fillers. They can't do the PDO threads. They can't start IVs. They can't really assist with medical procedures like hormone therapy or peptide therapy. They're really kind of just pushed to the back burner of, doing laser treatments and skincare, which is great. But I think estheticians, 20 some years ago, they were kind of the top provider in these practices. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but as medicine and this industry has evolved, it has become a lot more medical. So you're seeing more nurses who are estheticians as well being hired over like estheticians that don't have nursing licenses. So,
well, we're also, more under the microscope now than we were before. We're bumping up a little bit against time, but it's been cool to watch your business grow. I mean, you've come a long way. How many employees do you have right now? What's your business look like?
well, there's 8 of us right now.
That's
So
awesome.
I still try to make sure that I'm like first and foremost with my clients. So I'm always patient and client facing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been good. I mean, at the end of the day, this is my end game. The consulting firm is my end game. I'm not behind the chair anymore. I really just love helping people, start and find the solutions to develop a successful business. And so this is just fun for me. I mean, I'm very busy. I mean, I work a 14-hour day every day, but it doesn't feel like work for me. And for me, it seems very natural because I've been doing it for such a long time. So I sometimes forget that it can be a very intimidating process, which is why my clients hire me, is because I make it seem like it's not.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
yeah. I find a lot of joy in making sure that my clients are set up the right way. From a financial aspect, it's not a good feeling when you hear a client reach out to you that says, I opened my business 2 years ago and I need your help because I'm upside down. And it's always the same reason. They didn't know going into it what their bottom line was, how long it was going to take before they actually started being able to break even. They didn't understand the cost of hiring medical professionals. Some of them didn't even allocate, salaries for themselves, so
That's a huge issue. Most, I would say, don't, right? They think,
yeah.
well, I'm breaking even because I'm breaking even, but well, you haven't paid yourself anything yet. So like, if you want to sell, someone's going to want to look at that.
Right. Yeah. So I always recommend, even when you're in the very beginning, if you're already open and you haven't developed a financial performer yet, that's probably the first thing that you need to do is just let's put all the things in a plan and see where you're at. And most of the time they don't know where they're at. So this is your bottom line. This is what you need to make. And this is what you need to generate per hour. And then here's the marketing that you need to invest in order to get that revenue per hour. So there's the whole strategy behind it and a sales strategy too. It's not just we're going to market on Google and Facebook and then people are going to call. The sales strategy is probably the next most important thing is, how are you doing your consultations? What's your patient journey look like? Are you doing consultations in an exam room and only taking 15 minutes to educate your patient? That's not going to grow your practice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's I think people struggle sometimes to break it down. So I need to make how much a month, I need to make how much a day, but then breaking it down by hour, and then you can include treatments and providers and how much you're making with each treatment. It at least it allows them to set kind of bite-sized goals. But if they don't do that, they're totally shooting in the dark and they have no idea what's coming. And it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So when you do a financial pro forma, you can see that. You can see what your bottom line is every month, and you can see what it's going to be in 6 months. And then you can see, what the marketing is going to be. And then you set yourself benchmarks. And then when you hit those benchmarks, you can hold your employees accountable, determine what their KPIs are and make sure they're hitting their goals. And then, you can determine, okay, our marketing, what's our cost per acquisition? How many new clients called? How many of those clients did we convert into consultations? And how many of those consultations do we convert into patients? And then looking at that aspect. So all those numbers are very valuable. I'm a numbers girl. I wasn't when I was in school. I mean, I was a straight A student, but I hated math. But in business, I love it because that's really where that's really where the insight is. That's, knowing your numbers and knowing what your KPIs are and knowing how much money it's going to take and what you need to invest ahead of time. Then the rest of it is just plugging and playing, putting it all into place.
It also makes you feel a lot better when you know kind of the picture, right? It's not knowing is stressful.
Yeah, when you're those first couple months, am I going to hit my break even is very, very overwhelming and very stressful. And things always kind of hit the fan at some point during those first couple months. So I always tell clients, we want to have enough operational cash to pay everything and have a cushion, at least at the very minimum 4 months, but ideally 6 months. By 6 months, you're feeling good. You've developed a reputation. You're starting to get the buzz out. People are being referred to you. But if you just open and you don't have a nest egg and you don't have your expenses covered and paid for, and you can't invest in marketing and you can't invest in the right staff, you're going to go upside down.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to let you go before I check in though on the mobile MedSpa solution, because they're so cool to see, because the way they're developed. What's the latest with that? Just give us kind of an update on what's going on with that and how that's progressing.
It's been a really fun year. We built a few models out this year. And I would say I'm still learning, because I'm not a mechanic. The fact that I'm selling vehicles and designing them with my partner, Michelle, is not something I ever saw happening, but I understand the med spa world. So it's been fun. But one of the things that we kind of broke through this year is we really developed some great relationships with some SBA banks. And so we've gotten the SBA on board and understanding that this is something that can be approved for funding. Typically, the SBA won't really do any type of funding unless the project is $350,000 or more. And when it comes to vehicles and financing vehicles, they typically would never get involved in that unless the business had been established for 5 years. So it was a little bit of a struggle in the beginning, banks to say, yeah, this is a startup, but there's also a vehicle, which is a major purchase, and we need funding for it. And they would just be like, I'm not interested. So we've worked through that. We've had some very long meetings and kind of come to Jesus moments with some of these banks to get them to understand and kind of get in bed with us so they understand what it is, and that it's just the same as a med spa and a new business. It's just, this is our asset. And so that was really great this year, as we've been able to get funding for some of these bigger vehicles, which has obviously been great for my client.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so like moving forward with that, are you seeing still continued interest in folks wanting to get these? And is it more, I want to have and I think we talked about this last time, I want to have a vehicle that's kind of my primary business, or is it a vehicle that is a marketing and branding tool for a current business?
So the year before last, we saw more of it being like an independent provider, kind of concierge medicine. This last year, we saw a lot of established practices like plastic surgery clinics, dermatology clinics, or very successful med spas branching out in the mobile and setting up kind of like pop-up shops in different cities.
Yeah.
And that's been very great. And so what they're doing is they're using mobile to establish that clientele in these smaller communities, and then building additional locations once they have the clientele. So that's been very interesting to see how they're doing it that way. But everybody just loves the vehicles. I mean, they're not what you expect. And, I'm constantly hearing that from my clients. My clients just cannot believe this is a vehicle. They cannot believe. I'm like, I know. I mean, they're just beautiful. They're gorgeous. They're compliant. And most importantly, they're safe. If you're going to go house to house or business to business and do IVs or Botox, not being in a compliant environment is setting yourself up for a lot of issues. Having the confidence that you're in a compliant, safeguarded facility that's on wheels, is just not only giving them a more positive reputation, but instilling trust within their patients. And we're learning that they're charging a premium for concierge. So, instead of $12 to $14 a unit for Botox, they're charging $18 to $19 for Botox because it's a elevated service.
That's great. I still want to get one of those built out and driven into the exhibit hall at the medical spa show and have that thing. So it would be so cool for people to see it. I've not figured that out.
Well, the problem is we can do it. We can park outside and have everybody. We've done it.
They won't let us bring it in.
But the problem is that these big convention centers, they want us to remove the engine. Like, they can't remove the engine.
Remove the engine? Like, no. I mean, I suppose we could remove it and then put it back in. Yeah, I know. It would be so cool, though. I can just see it. The buzz that would generate with people seeing one of those vehicles, and all just kind of pimped out. They're just so cool. And we'll figure that out one of these days.
I'll have to talk to my husband. He's in the construction rental industry. He's a VP at his company, and they have all these machines and stuff that they go to conventions with. So
that's what I mean. I guess maybe we do it without the engine. It just becomes like a booth, kind of. Maybe that's the way to do it. All right. Well, something to chew on. Ashley, it's great seeing you, and congratulations on your growth. I think it's so cool what you're doing. It's I've known you for a bit, and I've kind of seen your ups and downs, and to see you build out this, which I know has always been kind of a dream of yours, has been really cool. I have no doubt you're going to be more successful as time goes on. We'll have to get you to talk at one of our boot camps, because I think you've got a lot to offer. Anything else you want to mention before we go? Where can folks find you? What's your last piece of advice?
I mean, if you're looking to start a med spa, or you're looking to expand, or you just want to know your numbers and develop a strategy for growth, you can find us at DermAestheticConsulting.com. Schedule a strategy call. You get a free strategy call by being an AmSpa member. I'd love to just chat with you about your business, and from there, we'll just take it day by day and see what we need to do to help you grow.
That's awesome. It's great seeing you. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you to producers Madeline Mahler, marketing content coordinator who organizes, schedules, and handles our guests, provides topics, talking points, and guest bios to our hosts. And myself, Jody Guzman, technology operations assistant manager. I handle the audio and video editing, voiceovers, and tech. Kate Harper, digital marketing coordinator who makes all of our graphics and manages the podcast platform. Esme Uriostegui, senior social media coordinator, who makes and posts all the clips of the podcast to our social feeds. Our music is by Ghost Score. Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below.